When it comes to smoking pulled pork, you can make it into an all-day, overnight affair like what we've got going on our Kamado Joe Classic, or you can do it hot and fast. Can you actually taste the difference though between these two methods? Well, the only way to find out is to do 2 pulled pork shoulders at the exact same time, one low and slow, hot and fast, get them to finish at the exact same time, and do a taste test to see if you can actually tell the difference, if it's worth taking twice as long for some delicious pulled pork. Let's get started. Hey, I'm James from Smoking Dead Barbecue, and you guys ask all the time, James, does it actually taste different doing hot and fast versus low and slow? And so to find out, I picked some of my favorite barbecue foods, and I'm going to be cooking them this way head to head to find out if you can actually taste the difference. I've already done some baby back ribs, low and slow, in 6 hours versus hot and fast in half the time. Today we're doing pulled pork. And next up, wait for it, you guessed it, I've got 2 identical briskets we're also going to be putting to the test. So if you want to see that one, you're not already subscribed, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you're alerted when it comes out. So for our low and slow pulled pork, I put this on the Kamado Joe Classic last night, right just before midnight, and it's got now a 10-hour head start. So we're about to throw on our hot and fast pulled pork that we will be cooking about 350 to 400 degrees Fahrenheit on our Big Joe. The plan is to try and get them both done for dinner time around 5 o'clock tonight and do our taste tests so we can see if there's a difference. Now, I decided to use the I command last night, and I set it for 220 degrees Fahrenheit for the first hour just to help get a little bit more smoke on it. And then I bumped it down to 210 degrees right before I went to bed, just because I didn't want, in the overnight cook for it to get too far along and actually be close to done in the morning, because that 8 hours is still a long time on the barbecue. Now, I also inserted our meter probe along with the I command, and more on that in a second, as there's 2 very different recollections of how stable our grill has been. I'll put that up on screen in a couple minutes. But first, let's fire up our Big Joe. I'll bring you a little bit closer and show you how we're going to set up for today's cook. Okay, so for building our fire in the Big Joe, I'm going to go ahead and place some oak wood right on the bottom of the grill and then push some of that remaining charcoal over top of it. Now, some of you guys ask this question all the time, how much smoking wood should I use? If you notice in Fast Forward, we set up the Classic, I used 2 pieces of oak, so roughly about half of what we're putting in the Big Joe. And that is because I like to hold about a 90% ratio to 95% ratio of charcoal to wood. If you start going too much above that, you're going to have unpredictable temperatures and maybe some bad smoke. The other reason, because we have, again, more space, bigger Joe, and can get away with that, is we're also doing this cook hot and fast, and anywhere between 350 to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. This is going to be tempted just to be burning nonstop, and it's going to expire much, much quicker. So getting away with a little bit more wood is okay in this situation. Let's bury this with the leftover coals and add some more if we need. Get ready to fire it up. Okay, so just like on our Classic, let's go ahead and install the base only of our slow roller. We'll install the top portion once our grill is up to temperature. We'll also install the divide and conquer rack as part of the warming up process. So this is so that we get some heat in our dome before we do anything else. So I'm looking to see 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, our grill is now reading close to 350 degrees, and the hand test is working because this ceramic is something that I don't want to hold for more than a second or 2, so I know that we are heat soaked. Let's go ahead and install the top of our slow roller as well as our drip tray. Okay, so first let's install the extension for our slow roller, then our base, our top plate. Next, I'm going to use the X accessory rack so that we can hold a drip tray and have it not touching the top of our slow roller. This is really important so that we don't get just pork fat burning and misflavoring our pulled pork. We're only going to get the smoke coming from our smoking wood and charcoal itself. Okay, let's drop on our drip tray, install our cooking grids, and let's let that stabilize to 350 degrees and we'll get our second pulled pork on. So while we're waiting for our Big Joe to come up to temperature, let me throw up those 2 charts that I mentioned. One, let's take a look first at the meter chart. So this is, again, the pork going on just around midnight last night. You can see that slightly higher temperature, 220 degrees, before I set it down to about 210 degrees. What's interesting here in the meter when we look at the data is I actually see spikes up to about 240, 250 degrees down into the high 190s, and then pretty much holding within a 5 to 10 degree range. Not too concerned about that, but it's very different representation of the data versus our iCommand temperature probe. So now let me throw that up on the screen here. And again, you can see the fan working hard to help stabilize things at the beginning of the cook before settling in. But we're very much drawing a straight line here. So if you were to look again at these two different data sources, you get a bit of a different impression about what's going on. And it just helps us, again, understand the tools and the information and the settings on our grill. So big fan, no pun intended, of taking a look at your data, in particular, maybe using two sources to help validate which one you want to base your trust on and use to inform your cook strategy next time. Okay, we're nearly back recovered to 350 degrees, so I'm going to go ahead and take the opportunity now just to get this on, and we'll see that in a couple hours. All right, so we've got both pork shoulders on. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments what will win. I'm really curious what your guess is going into this. Will it be approximately 14-hour pulled pork, or half the time 7-hour pulled pork? Let me know in the comments and we'll find out together which one is the ultimate pulled pork champion. I'll bring the camera a little closer and just give you a peek at this one now that it's been on for 10 hours. It doesn't look to me like it needs to be sprayed, but I do suspect with our hot and fast, I might need to hit that with the spray bottle. So the plan is just to have some water nearby, and every hour to hour and a half, just give that a little bit of spray to help our bark form as well as prevent anything from drying out. Other than that, game plan is just to let these two go for the duration of our wonderful Saturday morning, afternoon here, and I'll rejoin you a little bit later in the afternoon where we're getting close to our taste test and we could start to find out what's the ultimate pulled pork champion, hot and fast or low and slow. See you soon. All right, we are 13 hours into our low and slow cook and just 3 hours into our hot and fast cook, and already we have made up enough ground that both roasts are at the exact same temperature. So I'm just going to open up the dome and take an opportunity now to spray each of our two roasts just to help that crust. But I can tell from the sizzling action going on that our hot and fast roast is making up time really, really quickly. So we're just about 1 o'clock now here in the afternoon, and I like to have these rest for at least an hour before dinner. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a work back schedule to say if I want to finish at 4, how much temperature do we need to make up till we're pulled pork ready? And I'm going to do that because I can count on anywhere between about 15 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit per hour once we wrap these with some foil. So I'm just going to wait till we start to approach that work back schedule, and then we're based off how far each roast has to go, make the kind of game day decision on when to wrap each one with some foil. And I'm going to use foil today so that we can go ahead and add a little bit of apple cider vinegar to each of the two pouches and then have them rest until it is closer to dinner time. So I'll rejoin you once there's an update where we can get ready to wrap, add some foil, and get ready for that final stage of our cook. See you in a bit. Okay, so our hot and fast pork is ready to wrap. It's sitting just above 190 degrees. And so we have a great bark, nice crunchy crust bits, but to make sure that we don't dry out or not have some juicy, tender inside pieces, what I want to do now is go the last leg of our journey wrapped in foil. I've got 2 pieces of tin foil here, as well as some apple cider vinegar that I'll just pour over top and make a nice little foil pouch. I'll take you fast forward and then move the camera. We'll do the same thing on our classic. Just before I forget, so we don't mix any of these two pouches up earlier, let's go ahead and just mark low and slow LS on this pouch, and I'll do the same hot and fast on the other. So as we put them in the cooler later on, we don't get confused which one's which. Okay, our hot and fast roast is now probing about 205 degrees and it feels really tender. So I want to go ahead and get this off into a cooler. It's just an empty cooler that I'm going to throw a towel on top to help preserve some of that heat. And our low and slow roast, I just checked while I was out here. I think it has maybe another 30 to 45 minutes or so to go for the foil to do its work. So this is a now total time on the grill, just about 4.5 hours from nothing to done pulled pork. So let's go ahead and get our hot and fast into the cooler. So here we are at the end of our test. I'll take you inside and just show you what the two look like, our hot and fast as well as our low and slow, as well as just cutting them open to see if we could tell any difference before we shred them on our smoke ring. Now in terms of the feel, our hot and fast definitely had the most variability. The crust to the touch was fantastic, but there's also, like, in one section it was a little drier looking, and I think we'll be tasting compared to the other half of it, which I think is right on point. So it's all mixed together, so we'll have to see. And then our low and slow, which was almost falling apart the minute I tried to get it out of the foil. It just looks fantastic. So our total cook time here is sort of rounding down for the hot and fast, just about 4 hours and change. And our low and slow is 16 hours. So we're gonna find out, is it worth taking 3 times as long practically in this case in order to have some amazing pulled pork? So let's dig in and find out. Since I think technically the low and slow should be our best bet, let's go ahead and try that first and then see if there's an upgrade or a downgrade once we get to our hot and fast. So if you saw in the video, I put the low and slow off to the side here, which has a bit better smoke ring and color, and then we've got our hot and fast in the dish. Let's dig in. That is on point. That is really, really good. And I haven't even added any sauce or anything yet. It's juicy. The salt brine has really just helped flavor the meat all the way through. Not to the point where it's salty, but you're tasting the pork itself. Let's go ahead and try our hot and fast and see how it compares. These two are remarkably close, but the better of the two is our low and slow. It doesn't have any dry spots. The entire roast is flavorful no matter where we pulled our samples from. They're juicy, tender, the seasoning's on point, the salt is there, and I think the sauce is really just gonna punch it up. We're keeping it pretty simple with a Carolina style vinegar sauce. If I find the recipe that we always use, I'll go ahead and add that as an on-screen element just so you can see what goes into that sauce that we love to add to our pulled pork. Anyways, I hope you really enjoyed today's video where we pit low and slow against hot and fast. Remarkable that in 4 hours or 1/3 the time that we can get anything remotely close. And I'm really looking forward to see how the brisket video turns out, because this one was way closer than I thought it would be. If you like this video, let YouTube know by smashing that thumbs up button, and let me know by hitting subscribe to catch future videos. Easy for me to say. Until next time, I'm James from Smoking Dead Barbecue signing off. And remember, don't be afraid, fire it up.